So around 8 months or so ago, I decided to follow the advice that shaped an entire generation. I finally decided to go forth and learn to code. I ended up building a companion app that got a publisher's attention, and I actually started to learn how to develop my own games. I did what Barack Obama, every coding boot camp, and what every career counselor said that I should do to not have to worry about economic uncertainty. So why do I feel like I joined a dead movement right at the tail end? And why do I feel like we are basically, or we already have built the tools of our own replacement? Let's talk about it.
Step on it, Daddy!
Oh, hello there. YouTube game, I totally didn't forget to film this part until the very last second here. Back at it again with another banger. I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, my two patrons. Thank you to Ten Murphy and Hugo for being my first two patrons ever. And since I can't send them eggs through the mail, I'm gonna send them some of my stuff. So if you're actually really curious about that, I'll talk about that later. My current personal goal right now is to hit 10,000 subscribers by my 35th birthday, which is in like 3 weeks. Oh my God. So when I was 10 years old, my dad taught me HTML in his kitchen dining room. And I had absolutely no idea that I was getting an early preview of the biggest career advice bubble in modern history. And this was in the 90s when having a home computer was still kind of a flex, and when dial-up internet sounded like R2-D2 having an existential crisis. But as I'm watching my older kids starting to dabble in creative expression and digital media, I realized something that in hindsight, or I guess with foresight now, is kind of unsettling. My dad was unknowingly setting me up for a bubble that was more or less doomed to fail. Like, I spent the vast majority, 2/3 of my life, trying to get into an industry that ended up just automating itself out of a job. The skills that I learned, they're absolutely real, but the promise of what all of this was supposed to lead to, that was the bubble itself. But before we dive into the economics of how an entire generation or two entire generations got played, you need to understand why this matters to me personally. I've always been driven by creativity, that pure freedom of making something from nothing. And as a kid, I wanted to be every kind of artist. I wanted to be every kind of artist simultaneously. Drawing, singing, writing, making videos. If it involved creating something from the void, I was all in. And I was also lucky enough to be born at a time where I saw Donald Glover go from just YouTube sketchmaker to who he is now, along with also Bo Burnham. Like, I grew up watching them grow alongside my own creative endeavors. I remember spending my sophomore year of high school creating this very elaborate Halo 2 in real life battle with my friends. And this was literally a couple years before YouTube went live, so I literally just had to burn those shorts onto DVDs and physically hand them out at my school like it was my first ever mixtape. But watching the look on my friends' faces, it made it all worth it. I could reach people, move them, and make something bigger than myself. And even then, I understood that technology and art weren't entirely separate worlds. They were overlapping circles in a Venn diagram, and right in the middle, that sweet spot was where I wanted to live.
Foreshadowing is a narrative device.
Let's go ahead and fast forward back to 2013. Now, this was still when Barack Obama was in the White House and, rose-tinted glasses and all that. But he's got a message for every American out there.
Don't just buy a new video game, make one. Don't just download the latest app, help design it. Don't just play on your phone, program it.
The President of the United States essentially declared that coding was going to be the new literacy. It was a skill that was going to save the American middle class from economic irrelevance. And for a generation that watched the 2008 financial crisis destroy so many quote-unquote safe careers, that promise of personal control was incredibly enticing. But the one thing that we didn't realize is that we were living through a much larger transformation that started back in the 80s. Literally this morning, at the morning that I'm recording this video, the YouTube algorithm suggested a video from Professor Zhang Quinn from Predictive History. I clicked on it, it sounded interesting, and then I realized that this was the universe giving me some more information to include in this video. So here we go. So here's the thing that made the whole learn to code premise just so compelling. And this is really going to ruffle some feathers in the developer community, but I don't care. You guys can fight about it in the comments and give me that engagement. But here's the 100% objective truth. Learning to code is a lot easier than learning to do like any other creative outlet. It's easier than learning to draw. It's easier to learn than playing an instrument. It's easier to freaking learn how to code than it is to write a good freaking essay. Once you understand and grasp basic syntax and the logic structures within whatever language you're wanting to code in, you are already halfway there to working towards your solution. Like, your code may be held together with digital duct tape and prayers to the Omnissiah, see my last video, but it can still function. If it works, it works. We literally have programmer memes about, oh, well, it works on my computer, or do not touch anything or it will all break. So do not tell me that they're both equal. You cannot brute force artistic talent. I can teach my kids to print hello world in like an hour tops. But try to teach my kids to go from drawing stick figures to like a realistic duck, for example. That can't be done unless that person already has like some stupidly natural innate talent.
How could you? What were you thinking? Are you drawing a peanut?
It's a duck.
And this accessibility gap is exactly why I think that millions of people like myself believe that they could have career-changing pivots in like 12 to 24 weeks. And this wasn't just Obama, mind you. The message was everywhere, with the beautiful moral clarity that only a good bubble can provide. The narrative was beyond intoxicating, especially living in a place like Seattle, where I live now. How could you not? How could you not? Like, this is one of the biggest tech bubbles of the country. It just made sense. In an economy where traditional manufacturing jobs are disappearing and college costs are approaching sell-a-kidney territory, here was a clear path for many people my age and, a little bit older, a little bit younger. It was about pure individual agency. Put in the work, build the skills, get rewarded. It was truly American. Every company was becoming a software company, and the logic was ironclad. Learn the language of the future and you'll never want for work. Professor Zhang, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but Professor Zhang argues that Western society fundamentally shifted from organizing around workers to organizing around consumers. This wasn't just an economic change, it was a complete restructuring of how we understand human value and social organization. When workers were the center of society, you had political consciousness, you had collective bargaining, and you had worker solidarity. Workers had to organize to protect their interests. But consumers compete. Consumers are isolated. Consumers measure everything through economic logic rather than human value. The Learn to Code movement wasn't really about creating skilled workers. It was about creating consumers of educational products who would compete individually for scarce opportunities instead of organizing collectively for systemic change. But here is what we didn't see coming. We weren't just learning to code, we were building the collective knowledge base that would eventually make learning to code relevant for very many entry-level positions. Every time someone pushed code to GitHub, answered a question on Stack Overflow, or contributed to an open source project, they were adding to what would eventually become the training data for AI coding assistants. We thought we were building our careers, but we were actually building our competition. And the numbers are just now telling us how spectacularly this bubble was engineered to fail. Average bootcamps charged around $13,500 per student, but cost approximately $16,000 to deliver quality education. And only the top 18% of bootcamps achieved the scale necessary for profitability. The business model was fundamentally broken from day one, just like every other business model that pops up during some sort of employment gold rush. I know there's another term for it, but I don't know what that is. Like, in my research, I found out that computer science enrollment hit an absolute record high throughout the 2010s. Coding boot camps went from experimental programs to a $21 billion industry. And then just as millions of new developers were trained and let loose into the world, AI tools trained on that exact same collective data were also released into the market. This is why people believe that they could change their career into tech in 12 to 24 weeks. The initial progress feels like rapid and tangible growth in ways that artistic pursuits simply just don't really kind of compare. You spend 12 weeks learning how to build a whole program and it actually runs, you feel like a goddamn wizard. But the learn to code movement really exploited this accessibility. They took something that was generally more learnable than traditional creative skills and convinced people that learnable meant guaranteed career path. And to take a quote from The Simpsons here, you can see the exact moment that his heart breaks. So in 2023, big tech companies hired entry-level workers for 25% of their roles. But now by 2025, the numbers that I am finding are around 7%. That's a 70% reduction in entry-level opportunities in just 2 years. Yes, we are cooked. Computer science majors, despite record enrollment, now face unemployment rates that would make English majors feel smug and pretty damn good about themselves. Software engineers... If you're an English major and that line annoyed you good. Software engineers, who were once considered the golden children of recession-proof careers, represented 20% of tech layoffs in 2023, despite being only about 14% of the workforce. The people who were supposed to be automation-proof were getting automated out at disproportionate rate. Like, to give you a little bit of info about the philosophy and the background of, like, the original programming community, it's always been inherently collaborative. Sharing libraries, publishing algorithms, helping newcomers print out their first project, like that was all what the original community was all about. From the early days of SourceForge to old mailing lists to freaking news groups and up until maybe about the 2010s or so, a lot of programming and programming success were built on the shoulders of giants. And I think that this inherently more socialist or communistic kind of mindset about like technology and sharing the information for everyone, like I'm going to do a whole video about the FOSS and open source. To me, this gets to something very profound about how late-stage capitalism operates. Professor Zhang calls this phenomenon the perfection of slavery, and this phrase really captures something crucial about this whole movement. Traditional slavery requires force, it requires violence, and requires constant surveillance. People knew that they were being oppressed, and they knew that rebellion was at least possible. But now we have a system where people willingly or unwillingly participate in their own exploitation. And I think this ripple effect of tech consumerism is also in its own way the perfection of slavery, because the oppressed can't even recognize their own oppression. Instead, they call themselves entrepreneurs. They think they're building their careers, but they're participating in the meritocracy. Rebellion becomes hard, if not impossible, because every framework for understanding exploitation has been removed. Meanwhile, the gaming industry, my industry, was having its own apocalypse. 35,000 jobs minimum have been lost from 2022 to now. Entire studios shuttered overnight. Studios that had been around for decades gone in a quarterly earnings call. And the mass layoffs weren't just about economic downturns, they were about an industry that overexpanded during the bubble and is now contracting violently. They're closing faster than you can say we have Blockbuster at home. Some of the biggest names in the industry have shuttered their doors, unable to deliver on their job placement promises as the market has become saturated and hiring practices have fundamentally changed. I have friends, real people with families and mortgages who went from celebrating their dream jobs at major studios to competing with AI for basic entry-level positions. One month you'd see somebody posting excitedly about finally landing their role at that one company they always wanted to work for, complete with the photos of the new employee badges and all the company's swag, and then a month and a half later, 2 months later, you would see that green banner right back on their profile. So when it happened to me in 2023, I was finally ready to make a career transition I've been considering for over a decade, and this was just as the bridge I was planning to cross was burning down behind everyone else. Like, the whole point of this video, if you're thinking about getting into tech, this is what's going on right now. As I've said before, I've worked across tech and gaming for 10 years now. I've worked at Amazon, I've worked at Microsoft, I worked at Synology, but all that experience and a lot of the information that I took in behind the scenes, that all paid off a lot more than like coding boot camps ever could. I knew the landscape, I know how games are made, and I know how to market them for the most part. I just needed to fill in the technical gaps. And here's my secret weapon that the learn to code movement never really tells you about. I actually had an idea. A real one, a good one. So enter Godot game engine and its programming language GD script. We're not going to get too deep into this, but I mean, we're going to at least have to get our toes wet. When I first opened it up, something just clicked. You know that feeling when you pick up a controller for a new game and your muscle memory just knows what to do? It was like that, but with coding. But instead of building another tutorial project, because honestly, there are enough to-do lists or enough calculators, there are enough 2D platformers in this world that will prevent the heat death of the universe. It is scientifically proven. I have decided to create something I actually wanted to use. So for my project, I decided to try to make a tabletop role-playing game companion app. I'm a really big fan of the game 5 Parsecs from Home. I should have grabbed the book because it's right behind me on the shelf, but standing desk. But the whole goal was basically to create a companion app that would allow me to do a lot of the heavy lifting and automation of rolling dice tables and stuff like that. Essentially, I thought it would just be a really fancy Excel sheet. And to also make sure that I didn't get sued, I sent an email to Modifius, the publishers of the game, and I explained to them what my goals were and the fact that, depending on how it went and how it was received, to potentially monetize it. And I just wanted to make sure that was all cool. And when they emailed me back, I was expecting, a C and D. And instead of getting Cloak and Dagger, I actually got a, hey, you want to get on a phone call? Let's talk about this real quick. Maybe we can help you out. So yeah, I ended up my very first project ever reaching out to the publisher. They were interested. And then I realized, oh crap, this is real. And then to bring back a lot of what I was talking about earlier, here's where we need to talk about the biggest elephant in the room, or more accurately, the artificial intelligence and the integrated development environment. Everyone has their hard line about this issue. Some people's lines are closer to zero than others. I told myself my hard line was anything front-facing or public-facing. I've always been a creative first and foremost. I would rather make something with my own 2 hands and get covered in paint than let Midjourney make me a picture and get covered in Dorito.
Well, drawing ducks doesn't count as cartooning.
It's one duck, his name is Jim, and publishers are interested.
Because the editor that I use for all of my coding is called Cursor, and it actually has AI stuff integrated into it. And through my experimentation with it, I have found out that I really like Claude for coding, and it's been really helpful in helping me debug stuff and to learn how Godot as a system actually works. And because of the fact that I am literally terrified about the fact that I'm more than likely going to be losing subscribers just by admitting that fact, let's have a serious discussion about what that means. A lot of these automation tools that were built into these code editors now, they are both extremely helpful and also extremely stupid. Like, I was able to, at the very least, get a functional prototype working within 3 months, 0 experience. So while that's cool, that rapid expansion and that rapid progress kind of confirmed everything that I've been saying about coding being a lot more accessible than other traditional creative outlets. Something that I had a functional prototype in within months was already publisher interest. If I were to try to start playing piano today and then come back within 3-4 months, I would still probably be on either hot cross buns or chopsticks. Working and professional quality are not the same thing. They are not inherently mutual. My code right now is built together on a very basic understanding of how my coding engine works. I'm essentially speedrunning Dunning-Kruger effect right now. I'm gonna be 100% honest here, because I'm somehow building a functioning app despite the fact that I am probably violating several known laws of software engineering. But that ease of entry is exactly why these entry-level positions are extremely vulnerable to automation. If a dumbass like me can build an app in 3 months, or at least the beginnings of an app in 3 months, what happens when an AI can do it in 3 minutes? I have proof that I have skills that work and can generate genuine interest from people within the industries that I target. I am a very marketable person.
You're fired! Fired? You can't fire me! Me, Reptar!
But there's this weird psychological dissonance that no one ever warns you about, especially when you're watching the fallout of your industry in real time. And if you made it past that last part, welcome to the section of nuance. Most AI discourse right now is either it'll solve everything or it'll kill us all. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, leaning a little bit more towards it'll kill us all, but here's my actual position. I am okay with people using AI tools for repetitive coding tasks. It's the same way that people will be using bash scripts and automating computer things since the invention of computers. When I'm debugging syntax for like the 3rd time, yes, I would much rather ask the little AI chatbot to go through this folder and to replace all of these single lines of code that caused my entire thing to break. But the convenience factor of it is the fact that I can ask the chatbot directly to access the documentation for my editor and to tell me what it is that I am doing wrong. And that is pretty much for me where it begins and ends. That's my hard line. When this channel grows, because baby, it's growing. This channel is a grower, not a shower. But when this channel grows, every human role that I can create and give to be more than likely you guys, I will. I've dabbled with AI enough because I am really into technology, and that's my excuse. But I have dabbled with AI enough to know where its limitations are. And I'm not saying this because of the fact that I feel guilty about using AI to help me debug my code. I'm saying this because of the fact that, like, I know how this juice is made. All this stuff, this whole setup right here is to justify me using AI to debug. You know why? Let's take a look here. Like this, you see this? I made this. It's a dice holder. I don't know, there's no dice in here. But like, I 3D printed this. I sealed it with like resin, epoxy resin and stuff like that. I painted it, and I'm gonna give this to one of my patrons. I don't know which one yet. This is probably my favorite thing I've ever made. This dice tower. You see the frog?
Oh, man.
Look at that. Like, that's awesome. I made this with my own 2 hands. I took the filament from the 3D printer and squeezed it layer by layer myself. Like, long story short, I know what it takes to make something by hand. I know how amazing it feels to see yourself getting better with your craft. To be able to start with something like this, to end up with something that's like this. And you can tell that I actually made these because I also have a whole bunch of unfinished projects. But that also might be the ADHD. But I've seen what happens when we optimize efficiency for human flourishing. And at the end of the day, that's not what I'm about. Like, my kids and I have very in-depth discussions about how to navigate these things. They know that they can't use AI to do their homework, but they at least know that they can ask it to help it understand something in a way that maybe would make more sense to them. And I'm gonna say this again, this is me standing on business 10 toes down. Difference between AI coding and AI art, it really comes down to agency and creativity. But despite my hypocrisy, it pretty much comes down to the fact that Midjourney is creating an image that is taking different styles from different people. Yes, you may be able to create something that is quote unquote original, but you can't tell Midjourney create an original art style for it. It's impossible for it to do that. Same thing with it coming up with like different game mechanics or plot lines or anything like that, because of the fact that AI can't hallucinate the way that humans do. It hallucinates in its own way. To me, the only good use of artificial intelligence is to handle empirical data. That's really about it. I don't think that just because something can be automated, it should. Except maybe math and coding. But this was supposed to be a short video, I'm sorry. Long story short, in my opinion, if you're a learning developer, if you're an early programmer, designer, whatever, if you want to make your be gay, do crimes, George Santos experience video game, like, go for it. And you're wanting to use an LLM that is trained on the documentation of the stuff that you're working with, cool. Yeah, if it helps you learn more, go for it. But if you're using it to make the assets for your game, if you were using it to like make the music for your game or whatever, my brother in Christ, just go to OpenGameArt. OpenGameArt.org or itch.io. You can find plenty of free assets, and you can made by real humans. All you have to do is just credit them in your project, and everyone's happy. Why would you not support the people who are out there making good stuff instead of just wasting time, money, and world resources on your shitty shader for your game? Yeah, here I am 8 months after starting this project. 8 months after starting to realize that I still want to make games. And the biggest thing that I came back from all of this is I don't know if I really want to go back to the industry proper. I don't know if I ever want to get back into tech or into the games industry. Like, it's insane to me that it is more feasible for me to start making a living off like this channel and the endeavors that I create off of that than it would be for me to get back into tech, despite the fact that it would obviously be more financially lucrative. I succeeded in Obama's mission of learning to code, and it got me here. I spent 10 years of my life clawing into the tech industry to get into the gaming industry just to get in there right as everything was falling out. Like, why the fuck would I want to go back? Like, at the end of the day, I feel like I want a game that I don't want to play anymore. And the last part before I start wrapping up is the really infuriating fact that this can be done better. In places like Germany, they have integrated coding boot camps into part of like their existing vocational education system. So government will fund people to learn to code so that way they can maintain infrastructure for the country, the city, or whatever you want to call it. Places like Finland and Norway, they treat workforce development as a public good instead of just treating it as something that they are expecting a certain percentage of ROI from, return of investment. Once again, in countries that are not completely just hard focused on pure capitalism, they were able to at least navigate these areas in a way with a lot more nuance and common sense to ensure that the people as a whole are not getting left behind. At the end of the day, of course, the American Learn to Code movement gave us individual solutions to systemic problems. And to go back to the Reaganomics of it all, this is what sociologists would call neoliberal subjectivity. It's the idea that, sorry, cat hair, but neoliberal subjectivity is the idea that social problems can be solved through individual markets, which dumb. This one simple thing changes how most of us fundamentally see the world. It's not asking how can we as a society organize to, lift each other up. It becomes how can I gain the skills to be so valuable that I will be the last one to be replaced. So even if humble old me ends up becoming the next digital Donald Glover, like even if the project works out, all my different projects work out and all that, what am I modeling for my kids? Am I telling them that the answer to systemic instability is to basically be able to, duck and weave and dodge it? And I mean, that's probably the best place to start. I don't know. I'm making this up just like everyone else is. The world that our parents used to have, career advice and to navigate all that stuff, that world is long gone. So we have to kind of try to figure it out for ourselves to the best of our abilities. We live in a world now where entire industries can be created and shuttered within one election cycle. that's where we are. All right, so to end this on a more positive note, all those years of creative dabbling and marketing copy, video editing, PR, and all that, they weren't detours. If anything, I was just leveling up different skill trees without realizing it. When I finally sat down and started teaching myself how to make my first game, it wasn't just learning the code, it was bringing in decades of experiences that I have had throughout different jobs and careers and stuff like that. I learned how to help creative projects reach their audiences. I learned how to communicate complex ideas in a more simple fashion that makes it easier to understand. And I at least learned that you have to be realistic when balancing creative expression with personal constraints, whether that be technical or ability-wise. The whole learn to code movement failed because, just like AI and a lot of modern tech, it oversold the solution to a problem that either wasn't there or wasn't really that big, or it was just so systemic that you couldn't do anything about it. But me being the forever optimist, I still feel like individual effort can still create meaningful work. It can still build sustainable careers and still contribute to conversations about how we want to have technology shaping our society as we move forward. So I think the real lesson out of all this isn't don't learn to code or learn to code or whatever. I think it's more so to just think critically about the career promises that people are making you. Like, I really feel a lot for you kids who are in college right now or graduating college. I graduated high school in 2008, so I was able to completely circumvent all of the financial crisis by going to college. But if I had to do it all over again today, I would probably just say learn to build skills that really enhance your creative vision. And really, at the end of the day, just really learn to find meaning in the work that you do, regardless of whether or not the industry recognizes that meaning. And for the love of God, you're going to need to learn to adapt, because this world is changing fast. And for the fellow parents out there, we need to stop telling our kids that a certain path or industry will be the way. There is no more the way, so we're gonna have to help them figure them out along with them. Yeah, no, I'm done here. You can tell I'm done. The question isn't whether or not coding will make you recession-proof. The question is whether you can find meaning and stability in the work itself, regardless of what the industry promises or threatens against you. The best time to start whatever it was that you wanted to do was probably 10 years ago. The second best time to start is now. You have a lot more tools available to you to do whatever the hell you want creatively. But just remember, you're not learning the code to join a movement, you're learning the code because it'll help you build something meaningful in this world, or something meaningful for just yourself. And if you need help, just go ahead, leave a comment down below. There's so many different websites that people know of that help you to get started on learning how to do programming and stuff like that. So if you're interested, leave a comment down below, and yeah, we'll go from there. If you made it this far, I don't know what to say. This was supposed to be a short video, but I can't help but have talks about things in nuance. Let me know what you think. I'm going to get this up as soon as possible so I can start working on my Death Stranding video, which I'm very excited for. I'm really excited about the direction of this video, so hopefully this will help in the meantime. So let me know what you think. You know, hit the like, hit the subscribe, do the YouTube-y things, maybe check out the memberships, maybe check out the Patreon. If you want one of these things, maybe look at the Patreon. And yeah, I'm gonna go get started now. Talk to you guys later. Love you all. Thank you.